Let us pay homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Let us take the three refuges. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. Okay, we shall now chant the verses to observe the 5 precepts. Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Adinadana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Kamesu miccācara veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Musavada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Sura meraya majja pamadatthana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Welcome all to our Sunday service at our Buddhist Fellowship's Sunday service talk. Today we are very fortunate, very blessed, very honored, very delighted to have Ajahn Achalo to give us a Dhamma talk. Before we start, may I first read out his short bio for those of you who are not familiar with Ajahn. Ajahn Achalo, the founding abbot of Wat Anandagiri in Phetchabun, Thailand, was born in Australia in 1972. He developed a keen interest in meditation at the age of 20, and a year later left for Thailand to study Buddhism more intensively. Ajahn ordained as a monk in 1996 under Ajahn Liam at Wat Pa Pong. Although most of his training has taken place in Thailand, Ajahn has also lived in several international forest monasteries in the Ajahn Chah lineage. For most of his bhikkhu life, he has considered Tan Ajahn Anan, abbot of Wat Map Jan, to be his principal mentor. Ajahn Achalo generously shares his teachings to the world via the website World Wide Web, www.peacebeyondsuffering.org. So that's www.peacebeyondsuffering.org. And also on the Insight Timer, and also on YouTube, Zoom seminars, and he also leads retreats and pilgrimages. And he has also authored some books, like this one, which I'm reading now, which is really good. It's called The Process of Realisation. It's really good. So we're very happy to welcome Ajahn today. And we are very grateful that he has accepted our invitation to join us for a talk. And also, we are also grateful to Joyce and JC and all the volunteers of Anandagiri Monastery in Thailand, without whom this talk would not be successful. And so, may I now invite Ajahn to give us 10 minutes of guided meditation, followed by a Dhamma talk titled, How to Transform the Joy of Giving to Inner Peace. All yours, Ajahn.
Okay. So we're having a 10-minute guided meditation, is that right?
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
So sitting with a fairly straight posture, closing our eyes. setting the intention to be observing the breath. When we are choosing a meditation object, we are deciding to give our awareness to one primary object. In this occasion, it's the feeling of the breath. So we clearly set the intention, intending to be mindful of the feelings of the in-breath, the feelings of the out-breath. For the first couple of minutes, I recommend knowing the feelings at the nose, in the chest, and in the abdomen area. And then again, knowing the out-breath, abdomen, chest, and nose, giving a broader field of awareness. Try to know the entire in-breath and the entire out-breath. You can take a couple of deep breaths at the very beginning. And then the intention is just to know the natural breath as it is. In the Thai forest tradition, we're often using the syllables Bud and Do, Buddho. Lord Buddha was the awakened one, perfectly mindful one. Buddha means awake, aware, mindful. Such wonderful connotations to the word, so it's a encouraging, positive affirmation. Helps us to be with our task. So on the in-breath, Bud, and on the out-breath, Do, we do a gentle mental recitation. Knowing the feelings of the in-breath, gentle mental recitation, Bud. Knowing the feelings of the out-breath, gentle mental recitation, Do. On the in-breath, we're bringing in fresh energy, allowing the mind to settle in the moment within the parameters of the body, not thinking about the past or the future, other people, other places, just coming inwards. And on the out-breath, putting down the past, putting down the day, whatever it's been, it's the past already. Breathing input, breathing out, Do. After a few minutes, we can then choose to be aware of the breath in one area, wherever you can feel the breath most distinctly, the nose area, or the chest area, or the abdomen area. Different people have different characters, different habits. Different people can feel it more clearly in one of those areas. So wherever you can feel the breath most clearly, most consistently, then we refine the field of awareness to know the beginning, middle, and end of an in-breath, the space in between, the beginning, middle, and end of an out-breath, and another space. Allowing the mind to rest inwardly in the present moment. Mindful of the breathing, in breath put, out breath down. Just another minute or so, enjoying coming inward, resting, the mind collecting, using the breath as the main object, placing the interest of the feelings of the breathing, knowing the entire in-breath and the entire out-breath, keeping the center of awareness in the same area, in the spaces between the in and out breath. When we do this, the mind can experience some collectedness, some samadhi, coming from having consistent mindfulness on one object. And that brings us to the end of the 10-minute guided meditation. You'd like to introduce the meditation, the talk theme?
Thank you, Ajahn. That was very lovely indeed. And now invite Ajahn to give us a Dhamma talk on how to transform the joy of giving to inner peace. All yours, Ajahn. Thank you so much.
Okay, so very interesting timing. Halfway through the guided meditation, I hope you had your eyes closed and weren't watching, but halfway through the guided meditation, we did some fiddling and I just switched over to my cable connection. And now I can actually see all of your faces for the first time, which is nice. But that's your good karma. Singapore have a good internet connectivity karma. It happened just before this Dhamma talk. And I didn't plan it that way. So, okay, how do we transform the joy of giving into inner peace? Good question. So I think it's probably a given that Buddhists in Singapore and Malaysia do enjoy giving, quite renowned for Dana Barami, as are the people of Thailand. Then how do we transform this into inner peace? So many people in the act of giving do already feel a certain amount of joy and happiness. What I guess this really comes down to is essentially we have to make a commitment to committing to a meditation practice. So as Lord Buddha teaches, dana, sila, bhavana, we have to practice our dana. For those who aspire to liberating their minds, to realizing Nibbana, the path is abbreviated as dana, sila, and bhavana. So the dana is the foundation. It does produce merit. Merit makes the mind glad and it makes the mind brighter. But the mind is still, and it does work against the tendency towards meanness and selfishness, and it can reduce greed. Of course, it depends how we practice dana. If people practice dana with the intention to become more rich, then dana isn't reducing greed. So when we make our offerings, the intention is to practice letting go. So dana has a close link to renunciation, another of the 10 baramis. So in practice, dana is a practice of relinquishing some of our wealth, some of our time, some of our talents, the various ways that we can be generous. Then in terms of having that translate into a peaceful mind, this is where we come to our bhavana. And also we shouldn't skip over the sila. We have to have our ethical precepts. We have to maintain a good level of virtue. I prefer the word virtue. And when you're a virtuous person, generous person and a virtuous person, when you come to meditate, you're not going to have too much to feel remorse about. That's very important. Lord Buddha explains in the process of developing samadhi, a good concentration, right collectedness, sila plays an important role because a mind without remorse is a glad mind experiencing well-being. But if we are breaking precepts regularly, there will be feelings of we won't be proud of ourselves. We might be ashamed of some things or feel a bit bad. So keeping precepts is an act of generosity towards oneself. And it's also keeping a sila is actually considered to be a higher practice of dana. It's called the apaya dana, the giving of freedom from fear. So when we practice keeping our precepts strictly, those around us know that they can trust us. We're not going to lie or steal or cheat. And so there's a very close link to dana and sila. Sila is a higher practice of dana, but we need to have both. And the giving of things makes the mind glad. Not for everybody, of course. If a person is stingy or mean, attached to their wealth, sometimes giving can be very painful. And even so, we have to give because in the process of developing peace, it's often about letting go of the 5 hindrances when they come into the mind, letting go of kilesa. So Lord Pota put a lot of emphasis in his training of the importance of letting go. So you come to meditate, a lot of people don't like meditation so much because they have a lot of thinking. They come and sit and they want peace. They don't want the thinking. The thinking will usually fit into one of those 5 hindrances. Thoughts about things that you want, thoughts about things that you don't want. That's the craving for, craving not for. Then you have sloth and torpor, some sleepiness, drowsiness, dullness, restlessness and worry, or doubt. Doubt about the practice, doubt about your abilities, doubt about the Buddha, doubt about the Arahants, various things that we can doubt. But if we have a good quality of mindfulness, and if we have a good foundation of having been generous, we have some merit there, and we have the precepts, then the mind has the integrity to be able to see these things for what they are and actually put them down, let go. So we let go of the hindrances, we let go of the kilesa. The way we let go of it is that we pick up a neutral or a wholesome object instead. So we pick up a meditation object, or if we're experiencing an unwholesome mind state, then we can turn to the Brahma Viharas. We consciously have thoughts of loving kindness or compassion. So how do we bring our practice of generosity? So the practice of generosity is already laying the foundation. It's good to be confident about that being generous is the foundation of well-being. It does produce merit, and Lord Buddha says that merit is synonymous with happiness. So it's laying the causes for happiness. But in terms of having a peaceful mind, this can only come from training. So this is where we have to make a strong and deep commitment to a regular practice. And meditation is very interesting in as much as I would say if you meditate consistently for a period of months, meaning not missing a single day, you will notice some significant improvement from when you started a few months ago. But if you stop for a week or two, oftentimes when you start again, it seems like you're starting all over again. So this can be a bit frustrating, and it's an important lesson to learn. The quality of a good, sharp quality of sati, mindfulness, is a little bit delicate and fragile in the beginning. But if we are consistent in our practice, then it gets powerful over time. However, if something challenging happens in our life and we neglect our practice for a while, or we get a bit lazy, or we just get too busy and we don't do it, when you start, it almost feels like you're starting all over again. So one of the things that we have to learn is that to really get the results in practice, understanding the method is not so difficult. What is difficult is committing to consistency. So it has to be something that we just do, and it's a non-negotiable thing. So here we have to look at our priorities, and most people these days are busy, and there's lots of things we can do in the modern world. And so we have to really consider several things. Do you want liberation? Do you want Nibbana? Most people do, but often before they want that, they want a bit more happiness, a bit more financial security, a bit more well-being. So another question we can ask ourselves is, if the aspiration for liberation isn't very powerful in a unrelenting way, then sometimes we have to take some bitter medicine. And we have to ask ourselves, how many more lives do you want to be reborn? Some people it's like, well, I don't mind 4 or 5 more as long as a couple of those are in heaven, you know. The problem is, if we don't sow the causes for liberation, there are going to be thousands and thousands more lives. So this is, well, sometimes we have to wrestle with our laziness. It's like you have to ask yourself, put it to a number that you can imagine. So maybe 1,000. If we don't commit to this training in a serious way, it will be more than 1,000. But let's just put it in a context that we can hold. Imagine 1,000 more births, 1,000 more first days of school, 1,000 more teenage years, 1,000 more arguments with parents, 1,000 more falling in love, falling out of love, being betrayed, betraying, the whole thing, aging, sickness and death, living through prosperity, good fortune, fame, living through famine, wars, separation from the loved, disease, pestilence, the whole samsaric thing. Now imagine in those 1,000 lives, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 are in hell. Maybe 10 are ghosts. I'm assuming you're good people, so you're going to have mostly human and heaven realm rebirths. But Lord Buddha said, even if you're a good person who's been virtuous, where you get reborn, in general, we can talk about generalization. You can say that the general level of your mind throughout your life, if it was on a human level, that's the likely destination next life. If the general level of your mind was what they call a manusa deva, a human body with a deva's mind, keeping 5 precepts all the time, 8 precepts sometimes, doing retreats, chanting, brightening, gladdening your mind, making it like a deva's mind, then the likely destination will be a deva realm. And but Lord Buddha did say that that moment of death, it's like throwing up a stick in the sky. Because we all have good karma and because we all have bad karma that we've produced in the past, there's no guarantee which is going to ripen right at that precise moment. So we don't know which end of the stick is going to hit the ground. So if you're not a stream enterer, or if you're not a high-level bodhisattva who has control over your rebirth, we still haven't closed the gates to the lower realms. And so we really have to think about this. It's we're in a precarious situation in samsara. So sometimes we have to think of the advantages of practice, Buddha's teachings leading to heaven and beyond. And we have to think of the dangers of not practicing. And then when we come to meditate, because the talk's theme is how do we translate the joy of giving into the inner peace. So inner peace definitely comes from consistent meditation, but not every time and not straight away. So one of the big challenges that modern people have is our addiction to instant gratification. People can search on the internet and they can, suppose you like music, you can listen to your favorite song. Suppose you like movies, you can watch your favorite movie instantly if you have this free time. And you can watch new music and new movies. You can keep kind of getting born into pleasures quickly, instantly, if you have Netflix or whatever. So a lot of people don't have much patience when they come to meditate, and there's a lot of thinking, and the thoughts might not be pleasant, and they're not thoughts that they want. But we have to be willing to sit with some unpleasantness. So Ajahn Chah talks about this as being the suffering that leads to the end of suffering. So whatever suffering you experience in your process of cultivating mindfulness and deepening your meditation, this is suffering which has some benefit. It's suffering that leads to the end of suffering. In fact, many, many benefits come from a daily practice. Even if there's unwholesome thoughts coming up a lot, or a lot of restlessness, a lot of worrying, you learn a lot about your mind states. Mindfulness is sometimes translated as truth discerning awareness. So it just starts to see things more clearly. And you might have been in denial before. You might not have known the actual quality or content of your thoughts. And when you come to meditate, you realize, oh, there's some really greedy thoughts, or there's some really nasty thoughts. And I remember I'd been a novice in Ubon at Wat Nanajat for about a year, and I told Ajahn Pasano that I was going to disrobe. And he said, why? And I said, well, I come to meditate and I just have all these lustful thoughts and these angry thoughts, and I just don't think I've got what it takes to be a monk, I told him. And he said, well, a year ago, did you have those thoughts? And I said, yeah. And he said, and did a year ago, did you think they were really bad? No, not particularly. So he said, actually, this is growth. The mind can actually recognize what is wholesome and unwholesome. That is actually growth, a growth in mindfulness and clear comprehension. But we don't like it. We don't like seeing the unwholesomeness of the mind, but we have to, because seeing things clearly as they are, it's like this process of beginning to filter the mind, filter out the wholesome and the unwholesome. Lord Buddha said mental training is like refining gold. You have to take the black bits out. If you want pure gold, you have to kind of smelt and you have to refine and you have to take the silt and the other things that aren't gold. But in the end, what you get is gold. So how do we turn the joy of giving into the peace of meditation? Well, we do have to practice some patient endurance, and we do have to have firm resolve. If we just want, we use these words happiness and peace. Of course, we all want happiness and peace. But there's another phrase, isn't there? Spiritual materialism, where we're doing practice because we want something. And it's like, yes, that's what gets us to our cushion. And we have to have wholesome aspiration, wholesome desires. But when you come and practice to get deeper peace, you will learn more and more it's about letting go. You have to have the aspiration to get to the pillow. When you're on the pillow, you have to drop your desires, drop your expectations, be with things as they are, exactly as they are, with patience, with humility. And then peaceful periods open up. So you start to get what's called Kanika Samadhi, moments of peacefulness, up to 5 minutes of coolness, stillness, fullness. And then if we are consistent, as I was talking about, if we have a consistent discipline, well, then those periods will open in length, 15 or 20 minutes of deep, cool peacefulness. And if a person is consistent with their meditation over a period of years, those periods become more frequent and longer. But as I was saying, if you don't practice for a period of time and you get really, really busy, the hindrances come in and get thicker again, and the kilesas grow back again. And Tanajan Anand says that the Dhamma wheel is actually, it's those 8 spokes of the Eightfold Path, is something which is turning in your heart and mind. It's not the list of the Eightfold Path. That's like a directions map. It's not the symbol of the Dhamma wheel. It's a powerful thing. It's qualities, right mindfulness, right intention, right concentration, all of these things, right livelihood, right speech. That actually destroys greed, hatred, and delusion in your mind. But when we're not cultivating the Eightfold Path, the power of greed, hatred, and delusion is actually destroying the Dhamma wheel in the mind as well. So for that Dhamma wheel to get powerful, to really be turning in a way where it's weakening the hindrances, weakening the kilesas, the mindfulness, the concentration, the wisdom, the clear comprehension is getting more powerful. That's where the consistency is absolutely necessary. And then in general, the trajectory is things will get better. More moments of peacefulness, better quality of mindfulness, less quick to anger, quicker to stop ourselves if we're having some angry reactivity, more ability to forgive people, and less desire, or able to keep our desires and greed within healthy parameters, healthier parameters. But one meditation subject that Lord Buddha did recommend is the practice of Chaganusati. This is one of the Anusatis, so one of the reflective meditations taught by Lord Buddha, which is directly related to generosity. So, but again, in terms of being able to do a reflective meditation, you're going to need meditation skills. So with reflective meditation, it means picking up a particular train of thought and maintaining that train of thought in a focused and directed way. But we do need to have enough mindfulness to keep our reflection on that track, on that theme. And the meditation subjects that Lord Buddha recommended are all ones that lead the mind to wholesome, bright, peaceful states. So with Chaganusati, it is recollecting the good deeds that we've done, the generosity that we've practiced. So if you have a temple that you regularly support, if you have charities and centers that you support, and you come to meditate and you consciously decide to recollect that. And then when you recollect the fact that you have given once a week for so many years, or you've kept extra precepts once a week for so many years, you've meditated every day for so many months, weeks, years, etc., you recollect the good things that you've done, simply with the intention of gladdening the mind, feeling confident and happy about the merits that you've produced, the skillful deeds that you've done. This is very wholesome. So this is one way that our generosity practice sows the causes for being able to be peaceful, content, and happy, is that we feel glad about the things that we've done. Of course, we have to have the mindfulness with clear comprehension when we're doing this, because we're not doing it to build an ego. We're not doing it so that we think, I'm so generous, I'm so wonderful, I'm more generous than other people, I'm more disciplined than other people. It's very important that we don't use it to start comparing. We're not comparing to anybody, and we're not trying to be special. We're just recollecting the good things that we did, and we're acknowledging that it was good, that it was skillful, that it produced punya, merit, and we're feeling glad about that. So if you do that for 5 to 10 minutes, then you might find that it's easier to be with your breath afterwards. And this is a huge gift that we give to ourselves if we are consistent with our generosity practice. It's a huge gift because you can always do that. You can always, the mind might be kind of crazy with a lot of thinking, a lot of worries. It might not be willing to be with the breath. But if you can pick up the fact that you have been consistently generous in various ways, place the thoughts on that wholesome track and feel glad about that after 10 minutes. And that can be recollecting the retreats that you've done, recollecting the day-longs, the 7-day retreats, the 10-day retreats, the pilgrimages, the katinas. Just keep recollecting, and it's like you're like looking at what you've done, and you're inwardly, you're just sadhu, 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 sadhu. That was good. Anumodana. You have mudita for your own good efforts. So that is one way that the practice of dana can lead to peaceful states. But remembering that we practice dana, that's a beginning. So that kind of anusati, we're making the mind glad, so that then we can be with our meditation object to develop insight into not self. So we're starting with the conventional being who is generous and kind, training to be generous and kind, blameless, virtuous. And then when we come to the breath, trying to see the arising, staying for some time and ceasing, impermanent, not self nature of the body and mind. But gladdening the mind is a good start. So the other anusati is Buddha anusati. We can recollect the qualities of Lord Buddha, feel grateful for his sacrifice, for his huge offering, for everything he put into it, his legacy. The Dhamma anusati. That's what we do when we chant, isn't it? Qualities of the Buddha, qualities of the Dhamma, qualities of the Sangha. We're doing our Buddha anusati, Dhamma anusati, Sangha anusati. But Chaga anusati is another one of those, recollecting your good, virtuous deeds, gladdening the mind, bringing it to some peacefulness. And with regards deepening insight, the forest monk masters of the lineage in this day and age, it seems to me that they recommend body contemplation, seeing body parts, investigating body parts and seeing those body parts as elements, 4 elements. That seems to be what really deepens insight to a liberating kind of level, according to how I understand Ajahn Anan, Ajahn Chah, Ajahn Mahabua, Lumpur Man, how these bhikkhus have practiced. So the way we transform our powerful generosity practice into peacefulness is with a commitment to daily practice. And that means sitting when the mind is restless and sleepy every day, understanding, and we really have to pay attention, so we don't expect good results every time. So what I'm saying is the drawback to instant gratification culture is that we want a peaceful meditation every time, and that's just not the way the mind works. Because we do think a lot, because we do give attention to a lot of things, when we come to sit, there's going to be thinking, and there's going to be the mind having an interest in many different things. But if we are consistent on a daily level with our practice, there will be days where it's peaceful. And that's what we have to notice. And if we keep it up for a month, another month, those times when the meditation is peaceful and the periods in the meditation where it's peaceful will get longer and deeper. And then we have to take that as the encouragement. You see, it's peaceful sometimes. Those peaceful periods are getting deeper and longer. And then we get more determined to keep sowing the causes. And ideally, many people do their meditation late at night before sleep. And I really recommend that we do our meditation in the morning before going to work. Because you're wanting to develop the mindfulness to take into your day. So you can be mindful in all postures and be mindful of your thoughts. And then, if possible, meditating in the evening as well. If you meditate a couple of times a day, you're going to increase your chances of experiencing deep peace a lot. And then for those of you who are semi-retired or retired, then you have the possibility to increase it to 3 times a day. That would be for your long-lasting benefit. So I hope I answered your question. It would be great if there were some quick fixes, but this mental training is what it is. It's a training, and the benefits come from consistency and discipline, and they deepen over time, not necessarily steadily. That's the frustrating thing for people. People want to see. It's like you go to university and you get your bachelor's, and then you get your master's, and then you get your PhD, and it's like you get a car and after 5 years it's paid off. You know, we have all of these ways that we relate to things in the world, and we want our meditation to be like that. After 3 years you're a Sotapanna, after 5 years you're an Anagami, after 7 years you're an Arahant. And unfortunately we've had thousands of lives before this, and we have to be honest. We have to be honest about the fact that we give our attention to a lot of things. It is true that we might have a deeply committed Dhamma practice, and then you love the practice of Dhamma. But it's also true that you love lots of other things. You love your uncles and your aunties and your nieces and your nephews and your neighbors and whenever I'm trying to set dates for my Malaysian students, it's like, oh, so-and-so is having a wedding, or so-and-so is having a graduation, or we're trying to find the right dates. It's like, so we have to be honest about the fact that we give our interest and we have a love for many things, Dhamma practice being one of them. And so we have to expect the results to take a bit of time. But if we are consistent, and if we have increasing our efforts slowly and consistently over time, there is going to be more and more peace. And for people who come to meditate and notice that there's a lot of thinking and they feel that they're not getting anywhere, I think it's really important to challenge this. I really want people to have faith in the fact that sitting and knowing that you're thinking and recognizing the quality and the content of the thoughts is much, much better than thinking and not knowing what you're thinking and not recognizing the quality of your thoughts, because you are beginning to become mindful of your thoughts and what you're thinking and whether they're wholesome or not. And this is how we train the mind, by recognizing what is wholesome, what is unwholesome, what is neutral. And normally, if you have the patience to sit with a mind with a lot of thinking, that patience is something that you bring into your life. So maybe you should find that you get less reactive. Inside, the reaction might still be there, but in the past you would speak quickly, or you would complain more, or you would want to take revenge or whatever. But if you have more mindfulness, more patience, you're thinking it, but you can stop yourself saying it. Or you're saying it, and you can stop yourself after one sentence instead of a couple of pages. So there are definite benefits to being able to restrain body, speech, and mind through that mindfulness that comes from daily practice. But I think many of you probably have a regular practice and are probably already experiencing some peaceful moments in most meditations. So for those of you who are already there, then we just keep going and sow the causes, enjoy the pleasant results when they come. But you can recollect your generous deeds. You can recollect having been virtuous, recollect all of the retreats and pilgrimages and offerings you've made, and feel glad about that as a way to bring the mind, orient the mind towards more content and peaceful states. In general, it's these, from my conversations with people, it's like 8, 9, 10-day retreats and longer where people get deeper insights. So it's like the mindfulness has to get to a certain power that comes from the consistency and the sheer effort. Then the strong mindfulness becomes more powerful than the greed, hatred, and delusion. And then because of that, greed, hatred, and delusion falls away from the mind for periods of time. And people have an insight into the deeper reality, the pure, empty nature of the mind that strong mindfulness leads to. As the Lord Buddha says, mindfulness, as Lord Buddha says, mindfulness, when cultivated, made much of, leads to the deathless and merges in the deathless. So something that you can have a lot of faith in, but it's a subtle quality that develops slowly over time with consistent practice. But at the same time, even though it's subtle, it's also probably the most important single quality, because Lord Buddha, in one of those 7 weeks after his enlightenment, he was amazed with his result. He said, how did I do this? Realize the deathless, the unconditioned. And he saw it's just these 4 foundations of mindfulness lead to the deathless and merge in the deathless. So even if you think your mindfulness is a bit weak or not consistent yet, at least you know this is the thing which is going to liberate you. And you know that it's really, really worth giving a lot of energy to cultivating, because you've finally found it. You have found the practices and the quality that is going to lead to your liberation. Then it's a matter of cultivating it. And then it will lead you to the deathless. How quickly, how slowly will depend also in some degree to how much we've practiced in previous lives.
Thank you, Ajahn, for this very inspiring talk. Can I start by asking a question, please?
Yes.
I totally understand what you mean by having a consistent practice and having the discipline to actually do a meditation, give out a part of my life for meditation daily. So I totally agree with you, and that's one of my problems, procrastination, and I need that discipline. But sometimes I feel that after a long period without meditating, sometimes when I come back to it, it sometimes gets a bit more, the mindfulness gets a bit more stronger, and the joy gets a bit more stronger. Maybe because when I was doing it, I was really pushing myself, and there was a lot of willpower, and there was a lot of ill will maybe, and I wanted my spiritual materialist stuff really quickly. So I forget about it, don't do anything for a few weeks, and then when I come back to it, when I get more relaxed, the joy starts coming again.
Right. Yeah. But so I guess my point is, if you could, with your quality of mindfulness, if you could have recognized the willfulness, if you could have recognized the fault finding, and if you could have dropped that, and if you continued with your consistent practice, then I think you will get deeper samadhi and deeper insights. But it's very important to recognize that. And it's one of the powers of metta, I think. I mean, for myself, my teacher recommended to me, since I was a monk in my 2nd year, to spend the first 5 to 10 minutes of every meditation session on loving kindness practice for myself, because I wanted to be enlightened by the end of the week. And sometimes I was getting quite wondrous results, but then the next day I'd be quite grumpy or depressed. And he was saying there was too much willfulness, and then you get the good results and you feel like you're getting somewhere, and then you get not so good results and you compare yourself to that and you get dejected. And loving kindness has this ability. A large component of loving kindness is allowing things to be the way they are. So it's like loving acceptance. Really, if you're spreading loving kindness into your own heart and mind, you have to love it and accept it the way it is. Loving kindness practice that's not the practice where you're looking at what is wholesome and unwholesome and trying to purify the mind. You're just starting with the goodwill. So I think most modern people probably I would recommend, I think most people need to do that, because it just takes the willfulness and the fault finding off the mind. It helps you to drop it from the mind, so that when you come to know the breath, you're really just applying mindfulness to knowing the breath with less expectations and less judgments. So to this day, I still do that. It was very good advice. I still do 5 or 10 minutes of metta at the beginning of every meditation session. And then the result is, after 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you end up with a lot more metta than you used to have.
Wow, 10 or 20 years. Okay, I hope I'll get there. Thank you. That's great advice.
I'm thinking about myself, I can see that after doing that every day, after 5 years, there was a lot more metta. After 10, there was even more. After 20, there's even more. So.
Amazing. Yes, I've heard that. I've heard that metta is a sweetener for the meditation as well. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you. And can I ask, are there any other questions from the floor? I know Ming has one. Ming, do you want to ask your question? Sis Ming?
Okay, Ajahn, I think for the benefit of all, first of all, thank you for your teachings. I've also joined you in, other sessions before. I think for the benefit of all, could you just elaborate on deathless and unconditioned? I know what it is, but, many of us may not know. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's interesting that, please elaborate on what is the deathless and the unconditioned. So Lord Buddha, when describing Nibbana, is often talking about what it isn't. So it's an absence of greed and hatred and delusion. When various traditions try to describe it, it comes down to having a emptiness. So empty of what? Empty of greed, empty of hatred, empty of the delusion of self. So qualities like boundless, and it's also described as cool. So the greed, hatred, and delusion are like fire, they're hot. So it's profoundly cool, and there's no contraction or deluded self of others. There's no self-view. When there's no self-view, there's no one to like or not like, to want or not want. So there's no foundation for the greed, hatred, and delusion. They can't get their roots in. You basically have to practice enough that you glimpse it, because no one else can. That's what I was saying. Most people will get these more profound results in a 8, 9, or 10-day retreat. So it's when you start to do 8 or 9 or 10 hours a day of meditation, starting again, present moment, thinking less about the past and the future and other people, and not creating a self and a world. It's through not feeding the delusion of self and others that the mindfulness, and coming back to the object, that the mindfulness gets enough power that the greed, hatred, and delusion falls away from the mind for a few moments in the beginning, and then a person will experience, a practitioner will experience a mind which doesn't have the contraction of a self-view. And as practice, so that would be like a vipassana jnana, where a person just has a clear insight into the body is not self. There's no self there. And in having that insight, the feeling of being a self falls away from the mind. And you'll notice the absence of suffering, because without a self to crave for and to crave not, and without the delusion of a self, the mind is a very, very spacious, peaceful, aware, has an aware nature of aware, knowing, aware nature. And if a person practices more diligently, more consistently, then they will actually glimpse Nibbana. And then from that moment, the practitioner will know what the unconditioned is. But it is beyond conventions, and it's something that words are conditions. There's for example, the way Lord Buddha does describe it, there's no 4 elements in Nibbana. So the world disappears, the conditioned world disappears, the mind glimpses Nibbana. So it's a very liberating, and yet something knows it. Something knows this empty, clear knowing. So sometimes called the consciousness without showing, the place where the four elements find no footing. But all Buddhist practitioners who practice diligently and correctly and consistently will glimpse it and experience it for themselves. And it's good to understand, affirm that is all of our nature. So it's not the case that only the Buddha, every now and then a profound being comes along and experiences this. It's the fact that anybody who cultivates the Eightfold Path, anybody who cultivates the 4 foundations of mindfulness, will experience the unconditioned and the deathless. But we have to practice quite a lot, depending on how much we've practiced. But we have to practice quite a lot for the right mindfulness to have the power, the right mindfulness, the right collectedness to uproot the greed, hatred, and delusion for periods of time. In the Zen tradition, they call it the base ground luminosity. In the Tibetan tradition, they call it the mind of, the mind of clear light. There's various ways that it's described, but no description will get you there. Only practice will get the mind to the point where it experiences that. But it's a wonderful thing to know that conscious beings have this potential to experience purified, liberated mind, and that's actually the deeper nature. The greed, hatred, and delusion is something that affects the purity of the mind for a long period of time, obviously, but it is something that can be thrown off the mind, uprooted from the mind, and then what remains is that clear, knowing, liberated, blissful, unshakable peace.
Are there any more questions from the floor?
Namaste, Ajahn. Ajahn, you mentioned, how our attention is split across so many things. So we as lay practitioners, and there are certain things in terms of social obligations or just the way our life is laid out that we do need to attend to. How do we kind of gain back our mindfulness, both in this ordinary life and also increase consistency, not just from a sitting perspective, but also from an intention perspective?
Yeah. So earlier in this talk, I was recommending the importance of sitting in the morning instead of the evening. So if you can, go to bed a bit earlier and then get up earlier. And so hopefully you can get up before the other people in your house get up. And you're giving yourself that time to establish clarity. So don't leave the phone in another room or put it on silent. Don't even look at it yet. Don't do things that send your mind out into the world, self and others, plans for the future, etc., news. Don't look at it. Get up, wash your face, brush your teeth, come, sit. And then if you can sit for an hour in the morning, you will find that despite your social obligations, you are going to have more clarity throughout the day. And then it's that clarity is what is going to help you see what's affecting your mind. And of course, at the end of your sit, with regards your question about intention, that's when we set our intention. I'm setting my intention. I'm a Buddhist practitioner that aspires to purify and liberate my mind. So I'm setting the intention to consciously reduce the power of greed, hatred, and delusion in my daily life, slowly but surely. So you have that intention. You set that intention each day. And then it's like a tuning fork. You've done your, it's like a singer has to practice their scales and uses a tuning fork to hit the notes right. You will notice when you're off note, no, that's not it. That's not it. That's going too much into the greed or too much into the delusion or too much into the hatred. You will, in setting that clear intention and establishing that clarity, you will recognize throughout the day when the mind's going off. Doesn't mean you can always bring it back to balance and stability straight away, but with training, you will be able to. And again, if you can sit again in the evening, because when you sit twice a day, when you come to sit, what you'll find is if you did say something you shouldn't have said, that's what will come up. You'll sit and you'll think, oh, I wish I didn't say that to so-and-so, or I wish I didn't do that, or I wish I didn't think quite so much about that. So it's that the bookends to your day. You establish the clarity, you set the intention. At the end of the day, you see how you did. Then that's going to become quite a powerful practice. But we do have to set the intention to be aware of our intentions. Set the intention, you're on Buddha's path of mental cultivation, weakening and uprooting greed, hatred, and delusion. And then you will see when other intentions come into the mind. And then we try to contain them. Sometimes it's just a matter of patient endurance. It's like the greed and the hatred is strong. It'll come up in the mind. It doesn't mean that you have to say it or do it. You just, sometimes many practitioners, I have the same experience. It's like there's three people in there. There's the good habits and the good things you want to do. There's the bad habits, the things you know you shouldn't do. And then there's that which knows them. And it's like, yeah, it's like the angel on one side and the devil on the other side. But if that knowing is established, the devils can come up and you can have your unwholesome thoughts and you can have your unwholesome desires, but you don't have to say unwholesome things and you don't have to do unwholesome things. And then those things just fall away from the mind according to their nature. They just arise and cease. If we have the patient endurance to just wait for them to cease. So morning practice, go to bed earlier, get up earlier, sit a bit longer, and then the clarity will come into your day, even if it's a busy day.
Thank you, Ajahn. I think that's very good advice too. My son used to set the alarm really early, like half an hour, so that he can get up early. But then he rolls over, and here I am. I can't get back to sleep, and I get annoyed. But now I'm going to use that time to get
Right.
up and meditate.
If he doesn't get up, you can get up.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Thank you, my dear son, for waking me up so early.
A few days ago, I got angry, but now I think I'll take your advice. Thank you, Ajahn.
Sadhu.
Thank you. Sis Xuan, Sis Joyce, do you have any questions? Okay. I think if it's okay with Ajahn, do you have any final words of advice for all of us, especially those? I have very good friends who come for all the Dhamma talks on Zoom, come arrange Dhamma talks, but they don't meditate. Can we have some final words of advice for our dear friends who don't meditate?
Well, I'll just remind you what I said earlier in the talk. How many more thousands of lives do you want to be born? Because without training your mind, you're not going to be able to uproot it. So making the time to be listening to the Dhamma talk, it is Dhamma reflection. So it is giving skillful attention. Your mind can become a little bit peaceful listening to the wise words of others. So it's the beginning of mental training. But in terms of refining one's mindfulness about what mind states one's experiencing, what feelings one's experiencing, knowing them as they arise and stay for some time and cease, that's something we have to bring inwards and cultivate further. So it's a carrot and stick. If you practice, you're heading for heaven and beyond. If you don't practice, you may have millions more lives, some of them in hell.
Mm.
So.
Sobering thought.
Carrot and stick, yeah.
So, Ajahn, you would recommend the Buddha method? So, Bud on the in-breath, Do on the out-breath.
Yeah.
And then at deeper levels, let go of the Buddha. Can I say that?
Yeah, so if the mind becomes peaceful and that you feel like you don't need it anymore, you just allow it to fall away. And you take the peacefulness then becomes the object, the peacefulness knowing the breath, that's the object. And but if the mind starts wandering and thoughts come back, you pick up Buddha quickly again. So.
Thank you, Ajahn. And also to also follow the entire breath in and out, or just a spot over the lip where the air touches?
So either, it really depends. So what I recommend is knowing nose, chest, abdomen for the first few minutes.
Right.
And then choosing one of those places where you can feel it most consistently. Yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn.
You're
I
welcome.
think
Another question?
Oh, great.
Okay, Ajahn, I know you're sitting in front of a very huge Buddha. Could you just, is it possible to light up the place and see the Buddha or show us around?
Well,
This
if you invite me again in
Most
about a
definitely.
month, this will be a room which has lights. So at the moment, I've just got one spotlight. And it's not that huge. It's 1 meter and 30 centimeters, but I can show you a bit closer. He's very beautiful. It's made of sandstone. So. Yeah.
So is this place like an indoor place or an outdoor place?
So it was an outdoor place, and I'm making it an indoor place. So.
Is it the one that we see you in pictures that you're putting, laying the bricks?
You see these bricks? I laid those bricks. So. Yeah.
Sadhu.
As a part of Ajahn Chah's training is that the monks do some of the work. So. This was our first outdoor meditation area because the hot season here is quite lovely at nighttime. And even now, it's probably about 20 degrees at 7:15 at night. Very lovely. And not many mosquitoes. In the wet season there are, but in this season, not many. But when I developed the Chedi area in a larger area, basically nobody came to this area anymore. And we just came up here to sweep the leaves. And I realized that with the way the world changed this year, that live stream teachings would likely become part of my life. But I got a bit fed up with having laptops and lights and microphones and recorders in my meditation space. So it occurred to me that it would be good if I could have an office to keep those things and a meditation space and an actual room dedicated for teachings. And so in a way, we already had the floor, we already had electricity, and we already had water. And I realized if I just put some walls and a roof, I've got a very nice space. So. And next time we will have actual lighting on fitted to a ceiling. In about a month, that should be finished if all goes as planned.
Thank you, Ajahn. We look forward to it. Definitely invite you back in about a month.
Okay, great.
But just for you, not to see any for you.
Sure, it's okay.
Okay, I suppose if there are no questions, can we say 3 sadhus for really thought-provoking and inspiring talk by Ajahn Anand? Sadhu,
Achalo.
sadhu.
You just called me Ajahn Anand.
Oh no, Achalo. Oh no.
Yeah.
You got to
I'm his-
re-record this part.
I'm his disciple, so
I'm so sorry, Ajahn Achalo.
Yes, you're welcome. Okay, nice joining you.
Thank you. Ajahn, may I invite you to give us the share merits and do the blessings?
Okay, yes.
Thank
the
you.
dedication of blessings, is it?
And sharing of merits. Thank you, Ajahn.
Okay, come. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, may my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life, may they soon attain the threefold bliss and realize the deathless, through the goodness that arises from my practice, and through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until I realize Nibbana in every kind of birth. May I have an upright mind, with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge. Unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is my noble Lord. The Sangha is my supreme support. Through the supreme power of all these, may darkness and delusion be dispelled.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Nice to see familiar friends and nice to meet many lovely new Kalyanamitta. Wishing you all well.
Thank you. And may all at Anandagiri Monastery be well and happy, and may all of you be safe and healthy, all the lay people, all the Sangha members. Keep safe, Ajahn. Thank you so
Sadhu.
much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you all for tuning in to our Sunday service. Do tune in next week on the 28th of February, when we are very honored to have Dr. Ng Yuan Yan to give us a talk on the Dhatu Vibhanga Sutta, or the exposition of the elements, and this is from the Majjhima Nikaya 140. So do join us. She's very knowledgeable and very wise. So do join us and enjoy a very inspiring talk next Sunday. Thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in today.
Dedication of merits. Let us invite all sentient beings to participate in our acquired merits. Ettavata cha amhehi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya. Ettavata cha amhehi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya. Ettavata cha amhehi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya. Let us dedicate the merits of participating in this wholesome Dhamma activity to our departed relatives and friends. Idang me tinang hotu sukita hontu tayo. Idang me tinang hotu sukita hontu tayo. Idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.